welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, December 10th, 2018 at 7 p.m. We will be having 4 committee meetings as well as a committee of the whole tonight. And you might notice that we have a little bit of time lapse between when our different committees meet. We've changed our format a little bit, and we have the committee members who are on that particular committee. So right now we have transportation committee members up here, and we'll be shifting members and adding and moving around as we move to the different agenda items on the format tonight. So first is transportation committee, and that's chaired by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. I have just two bullet points to discuss here tonight. One is a request for a street closure coming up this spring, actually Saturday, April 6th. And this is by the Athens Rotary is requesting this, and Brandon Elliott from the Rotary is here this evening. And yes, please go up and...
Thank you, Pete, and President Nisley, Mayor Patterson, and the rest of council on behalf of Athens Rotary. My name is Brandon Elliott. I am the Athens Rotary Club president this year, and we are requesting the street closure on Saturday, April 6th for Mom's Weekend at OU from 4 to 9 p.m. This fundraiser is expecting over 1,000 customers. We're expecting 10 to 15 pizza vendors at $10 per ticket, allows 6 samples. Customers are able to use the pizza tickets to vote on the best pizza that they have the opportunity to sample that day. It's an opportunity for Rotary to advertise our projects and get more of the community involved. We're requesting this shutdown at 2 p.m. in order to set up our tents, our trash, water stations, deliver the pizza. We've requested a beer distributor and to set up our gate and ticket tables. The event is to occur from 4 to 9 p.m. 1 hour to clean up trash, tables, and tents afterwards. Street to reopen by 10 p.m. Visitors or vendors to remove the porta-johns the following day or at council's discretion. Why Pizza Fest? It's a successful Rotary fundraiser for the Chillicothe and Sandusky Rotary Clubs, so we'd like to piggyback off of their successful events. It's possibly a yearly moneymaker for our club. We've contacted Brandon Thompson to DJ and assist with location and setup. He's very familiar with these types of events. Our preferred location is Court Street because we are looking to gain the student population. We're waiting on council approval before doing any type of paperwork with the pizza vendors. I have the Athens and Alexander Interact clubs at each school to assist with pre-sale tickets. Budweiser has agreed to set up beer vending through Mark Bysang at the Athens Sunrise Rotary Club. We'll be marketing to all of the area schools, Hawking College, and Ohio University. Marketing also to all the Ohio Health employees and the other county Rotaract clubs or Rotary clubs. This slide is an example of the First Capital Rotary Club in Chillicothe's flyer. So it is a successful event that they do every single year. Last year, their total revenue after paying out everything was over $10,000. These are going to be some of the costs the Athens Rotary will come up with. So permits to the health department, permits to the city, especially for the beer or possibly the street. Tents. Our club has come up with approximately 12 tents. We may need 15 to 20. So we may have to rent some of the tents. Our club is able to cover the tables. We will need to rent porta-johns. We will purchase armbands and ID every applicant that wishes to purchase alcoholic beverages. We will need to buy the tickets. I have created a ticket template. We will be providing voting tickets, so our customers can vote on their best pizza. We will collect and tally these votes, and we will advertise this in the paper. We will need radio advertising for this event, and also newspaper advertising. And the final thing from the health department is each station will need a hand wash station. If you look to the right, you'll see some of the possible vendors. I have spoken verbally, but I have not had any signed forms from these vendors. But they have agreed verbally that this is a great idea. This is the setup of the Sandusky Rotary Pizza Fest event. They have perfected this. Last year's total revenue was in the $80,000 range for their event. So this could grow. The requested area for the Athens Pizza Fest event is the lower end of Court Street. So I've spoken to the Uptown Athens Business Association, and they have requested that we would take this area for this day. So this has been approved through a phone call. And why do I need to do this event? So as president, I am to come up with my project for the year, and that is to provide every K through 6th grade classroom at 8 elementary schools with dispensers and a 1-year supply of hand sanitizer in all the local elementary schools. I've been awarded a $1,000 grant by Athens and Ohio Rotary District 6690. This total cost will be in the $4,000 range. And at the bottom, you will see all K through 6 classrooms at Alexander, at East, Morrison, the Plains, West, Amesville, Coolville, and Trimble will all have a hand sanitizer dispenser in every classroom. And this will cover the refills for the year. I've worked with the superintendents at these schools, and they have agreed that if we are able to cover a year, that they will be able to refill them as they go. So I think this is very important. I have small children in elementary schools right now. They continually, each and every year, come home with coughs, the flu, and it's because the dispensers are sparse or they're not refilled in these schools. So if we put one in every school district, this can increase attendance and increase the overall GPA of the students in our area. Sorry. This money that we make from this event will also help cover these services that Athens Rotary covers. We cover Special Olympics held at Alexander schools. We help with Athens Beautification Day. We participate in the Good Works Walk. RILA, which is the Rotary Youth Leadership Camp. We send 2 students every year to this camp on Ohio University's campus. This year, something new, we're going to send a student to Ohio Business Week Camp, which is an entrepreneurship and leadership camp at the College of Business. Each year, we're going to provide a fire truck in the OU Homecoming Parade. Each year, we provide scholarships to every area school in April and May. All of our Rotarians go out and hand out very large scholarships to 1, 2, or 3 different students at each school. We do the Red Cross Blood Drive in July. We work with Restore when the campus closes every year. We do the Good Works dinner in March at the Plains United Methodist Church. We provide dinner for the homeless and those less fortunate. And that concludes my presentation for today, but I just think that this is a revenue generator through our nonprofit Athens Rotary Foundation that can continue to service the community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, it looks like we do have one question, so we'll go straight to Member McGee.
Thank you. This may be a series of questions I'd like answered, but to start with, I'd like to commend you for the purpose of the project. I love the Rotary. I think you guys do a great job, and I have no complaints there, but I'm a little concerned about wanting to have it on Court Street at that particular time. That particular date in general is, as you say, Mom's Weekend. And it seems to be last year we had not only Mom's Weekend, but the International Street Fair at the same time. We also have, you know, your typical drunken debauchery, which I forget which fest is going on at any particular time. So, and you indicated that you wanted to make this on a regular basis, which, again, I think is commendable to do something that would actually bring some money into the community. I was wondering, my main question is this. I mean, there are so many areas around here on the university or down by the library that have open space grounds. And if you're putting up 20 tents or something, have you considered contacting the university and seeing if any kind of partnership can be worked out so that whether it's, down on the part by the old train station or whether it's down by the library area, that green space there, or even on the college green, whether there could be some area set aside so this thing could really expand and these people could enjoy the whole experience without what we would undoubtedly have would be a parking problem and a driving problem. Because I'm really concerned about that. I think it's a commendable thing, but I just wonder if you've explored that as an option, because that day is, I have no doubt that it's going to be a hard one for a lot of people.
Yeah, so we have explored the depot station location.
Right.
But when we projected, we did not project the level of customers. So that was the main reason for us requesting this exact space. So we also looked at the mall area, having it there, just kind of like they did the Chili Bowl Festival a couple of years ago. There's also some areas at the hospital. So those were the three areas we looked at. This was the #1 designated area for us to optimize our customer base and to collect the most revenue.
Are you considering alternatives, though? I mean, if City Council says this is going to be such a...
So yeah, if we were to be denied by council, then we would go back to the drawing board and come up with more ideas on where to locate this. Okay. But as far as what Athens Rotary Committee and Board of Directors are requesting, it is this location. If not this date, we could move the date, but we would like to have the specific Court Street location for this event.
Have you checked about the International Street Fair, whether it's on that same day by any chance?
I've looked at the OU calendar and I have not seen the street fair listed on that date.
Okay, you may want to do that. And just one last thing, I was kind of wondering if you've actually made contact with anyone at the university to see if either the college green could be opened up or some of the streets adjoining the green without as much of a traffic problem might be available.
There was concerns within the Rotary group to have it on the green because for this specific weekend, we want the mom customer base to be coming in to spend the money.
Right.
So we don't think that any other location that the moms and the student, so we're basically getting 2 for 1 out of having it on this date. So we're getting the mom and the multiple students coming in.
Are you anticipating stages at all? Because I know if Brandon's involved, you're probably...
No, we do not want a stage. We just want his normal setup, possibly at the end. We have not designed that yet. This is basically our first step after our setup of planning for this.
Okay. I could toss one last question.
Sure.
Since we're trying to support our local vendors, and I know you mentioned some of the businesses, and I know we have a vendor representative here. Some of us are concerned that this is a great weekend for vendors to actually be out there vending. Are you doing anything to accommodate the local ones so that they might have some options?
So we are specifically staying local. Of the 15 I listed, they're all local vendors. We have not contacted any vendors in Logan or Parkersburg or Chillicothe per se. This is strictly local. We're keeping it local. This gives an opportunity to not only promote Rotary and all the great things that we do, but for each pizza place to promote their product to the moms, because the mom's going to go back and say, oh, that was such great pizza from this and this place, and they're going to get a continuing customer to keep going back.
Thank you.
Great. Do we have questions from anyone else in transportation? No.
I do remember last year, Mom's Weekend with International Street Fair, we had some businesses that had concerns about Court Street being closed, but it was looking at farther south on Court Street, and I don't know when International Street Fair is. I don't see it yet on Ohio University's calendar, and I recall that they came to us rather late last year. So, Mayor, I guess maybe a question for you. Have you heard anything about the scheduling of International Street Fair? And I know we had talked about alternate locations and dates.
I believe they have landed on a date. I am not positive what that date is. It's typically in April, but I don't have a date for you. I can get that, though, quite easily.
Okay. Yeah, just too many things on one weekend all uptown.
Right.
So
what my club is going to be able to do is they're going to be able to offer the manpower. So we have approximately 30 Interact students. We have about 50 club members that have raised their hand to volunteer for this. So we will be properly manned throughout to be able to handle this event proficiently.
I think it sounds like a great event. Thank you.
Great, and if I can, I'll just add one thing, because Brandon and I had a little email conversation before he showed up tonight. When Rotary first approached the city for a street closure on Court Street, it wasn't really determined what block, and Ayuba really helped guide and provide input to essablish this northern section. So I think that they have done some preliminary groundwork. So I want to thank Brandon for coming in and having done some of that stuff up front. But yes, I guess that the International Street Fair is probably the big question mark that we're thinking about at this point. But thank you so much for coming in this evening and presenting.
We're grateful to get any area of Court Street this weekend for this event if possible. I'm very gracious.
All right.
Thank you much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Okay. The second point that we have here on Transportation Committee this evening is an LPA agreement between ODOT and the City of Athens. Once again, ODOT is moving forward and replacing some signage on Route 33 and US 33 and US 50, also on State Route 682. And so these, we don't have a date of when this work's going to happen, but basically we just want to get this agreement in place so that ODOT can do the sign replacement on city within the city, and of course ODOT will incur the 100% of the work involved. And so with that, that is, oh wait, I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions about an LPA agreement? Okay, with that I would like to close the Transportation Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to Planning and Development Committee, and this is chaired by Councilmember Fall, and also has Councilmember Reisner, McGee, and Grace on it.
The agenda item for Planning and Development tonight is the renewal of the contract with the Economic Development Council. This is normally just a rollover of the current year contract into the new year, unless there's specific things that have been requested to change, and I have not heard anything that's been requested. So, Mayor?
I would like to request a change. Okay. It's currently a one-year contract. I would like to have that changed or amended in the ordinance as we move this forward to a 3-year, which would be very similar to what we do with the Convention and Visitor Bureau's contract.
Right. And at one point it was 3 years. And then there was some issues about some miscommunication and such, but I think that the Economic Development Council has done a lot better job communicating with council and letting us know, and we've been working on some really awesome projects and stuff, so I would have no objection to 3 years.
There would still be an annual update coming from the Athens County Economic Development, so that won't change. But to be able to change that, it also is it advantageous for the city so that if there is any change to the fee structuring, that we are in with 3 years and will be covered for a 3-year period as opposed to annual.
Mm-hmm. I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
Questions, concerns?
I just wondered, how much money does the city contribute to that?
For the ordinance?
$60,000, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. So, other questions? Great. Well, that's the end of my planning and development committee. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to City and Safety Services. This is chaired by Councilmember Butler and also has Council members Katsas and Fall on that one too.
Thank you, President Isley. Good evening. We just have one item this evening under City and Safety Services, the disposal of city vehicles. Specifically, we have a 1997 Chevy Lumina, 1997 Chevy Cavalier, a 1998 Jeep Cherokee, a 2002 Kia Rio, a 1998 Ford Escort, and a 2000 Nissan Xterra. The city would like to declare the following vehicles, as I listed, no longer needed for municipal purpose. So the hope and request then is to authorize the City Service Safety Director to dispose of those items through governmental agencies or nonprofit organizations, auctions, sealed bid, trade-ins, or sell for scrap. Thank you. Does that sound accurate? Any questions or comments?
I do have a question about whether or not these vehicles would be replaced or they're just disposal.
I think these are just disposal.
Okay.
At this point. And one of the things I just noticed in the ordinance, which is typical, that we don't include the mileage, but if council would like to know the mileage of any or all these vehicles, I can certainly get that information for council. Mm-hmm. It's typically high miles.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from other council members? If not, thank you, President Nisa. That would conclude, unless the clerk has some information.
Thank you. All right.
That would conclude the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Finance and Personnel. Council Member Reisner is the chair, and with Council Members Butler and Crowell.
All right, we're all settled in here. Finance and Personnel Committee has 4 items tonight. Tuition reimbursement policy amend, ASME 24032 contract approval, U.S. Communities Cooperative Purchasing Program, and Housing Revolving Loan Fund Agreement renewal. So the tuition reimbursement policy amendment. Do we have a copy of that? Or?
Should be on there.
Okay. I'm sorry, which folder does it get in? Is it issued? Or?
I can help you, Councilmember Reisner, if you would like me to.
With some strikeouts, or is that right?
There is.
Oh, okay, here it is.
Quarters to semesters.
Right. Okay, here we go. In Section C, limitations, Part B, tuition reimbursement maximum limit shall be tied to the current tuition rates for 3, which is a striking out of 5, semester hours per semester quarter is struck out at Ohio University. So that's the amendment that we'll be amending or adding into the bargaining unit here. Any questions on that?
So we go to third reading or? Oh, no, we're on the first reading.
Yeah, this is over on first reading. Okay. Okay, next item is the ASME 2403 contract approval. This is, yes.
Would like that back.
Well,
The clerk.
it's mine. Gee. Easy come, easy go around here. Okay, where were we? ASME contract, yes. That's already been voted on by the union has approved it, and all we're doing here is giving our approval for council that the administration has entered into an agreement. So we will see what ordinance number is that going to be for tonight.
15618.
156. Ah, there it is. And it will be, the effective date shall run from October 7th, 2018 through October 4, 2021. And goes into effect immediately upon approval, so. Law Director, you have anything to add to it? Next item, U.S. Communities Cooperative Purchasing Program. Where does that come up here?
I didn't see that either.
I don't either.
That's not up for first reading.
Okay, so.
The mayor, you don't have anything on there?
I do not.
President Isley? Or?
Okay, so this is a proposed cooperative purchasing program into which the city wants to enter to get more competitive prices. And we would request that if city administration could share the details on what kind of purchases that we're anticipating from the city, that would be helpful for the city to make those purchases. It's similar to another purchasing agreement that the administration entered into earlier this year, and basically to get more competitive prices, some cost savings for the city. But we appreciate some of the details on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But this isn't the same as what we have with the state of Ohio with the purchasing agreements there. Where we
No, that's through Department of Administrative Services with the state. Yeah, this is different.
I will get you more detail on it.
Okay. Okay, then last is Housing Revolving Loan Fund Agreement Renewal. And that is where? Anything to say about this, Mr. Mayor?
Just that this is a renewal that we go through every 3 years. Mr. Crippen sent us a memo not too long ago, as a matter of fact, just this week, stating that this update is coming forward, this renewal is coming forward, so we need to renew. This is something that we do every 3 years.
Okay. Can the committee see a copy of that letter from me?
I can certainly have it forwarded on to you.
Okay. Yeah. What the details are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Questions on that? Anyone? Okay. Well, that's all this for this committee.
Okay. We'll move on to Committee of the Whole. So if all the council members would join us. I think Councilmember Fall is going to be speaking about a proposed resolution. That resolution would not be up for reading tonight, but she wants to bring it up through committee tonight so that it would be ready for a reading next week. And this is, the resolution is in opposition to Ohio Substitute Senate Bill number 250.
Thank you. As we all probably know, right now is the lame duck season for various legislatures across the Midwest. We have seen in Wisconsin a power grab by certain members of the legislature to limit the amount of being able to have the necessary powers for the new governor that was coming in, who happens to be of a different party. Michigan has done similar things, and has North Carolina. And here we are, all, we can't have Ohio be behind. So right now, our lame duck legislators are doing all sorts of nasty little power grabs. One of them is completely outrageous, which is the substitute Senate Bill 250. So I just will read the ordinance, the resolution. It will be a resolution. And then I would encourage everybody to contact their legislatures and their legislators to register outrage with this particular power grab and taking away from not only home rule of different municipalities and cities, but also First Amendment rights. A resolution in opposition to state substitute Senate Bill 250, a bill to modify the offenses of criminal mischief, criminal trespass, aggravated trespass, telecommunication harassment, and making false alarms with respect to critical infrastructure facilities. Whereas substitute Senate Bill 250 would criminalize certain protest actions as felonies that are already addressed by Ohio law now designated, at most, as misdemeanors and is therefore unnecessary. And whereas substitute Senate Bill 250 arbitrarily, with no justification or definition of criteria for inclusion, designates protests at certain locations and facilities as subject to draconian penalties, a violation of due process, and a violation of constitutionally protected First Amendment rights. And whereas substitute Senate Bill 250 would criminalize the intent to impede operations of certain facilities, a violation of the First Amendment right. And whereas substitute Senate Bill 250 would make organizations deemed vicariously liable for this criminalization activity for announcing an event or for paying for court or bail costs for those charged with felonies under this law, with 10 times the fines received by individuals, thus intimidating and threatening the existence of organizations that have no actual power over the behavior of individuals engaged in protest, thus chilling dissent, a violation of constitutional rights. And whereas substitute Senate Bill 250 singles out pipeline and oil and gas facilities for inclusion of these protections, these prioritizations, the operations of corporate fossil fuel industrial activities over the rights of citizens to peaceful protest against imminent threats to communities and planetary safety. And whereas the bill thus overbroad, vague, clearly intended to chill dissent and violates due process and is thus unconstitutional in violation of First Amendment rights. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, strongly recommend that Governor Kasich veto the final version of this bill. The rest of it is sending it out on first available. This is chilling. This is a chilling aspect right now that the lame duck is trying to put forward. This could potentially involve the city too.
Absolutely.
Another disgraceful part of people who don't listen to the voters. We're not listening to the voters and their desire to be able to protect their home and the planet. Questions, comments? Patrick?
I would just like to compliment the legislature on their farsightedness in being able to understand that the general public won't tolerate much of their shenanigans much longer, as well as condemn them for their nearsightedness in realizing that they are willing to sacrifice the rights of citizens for the money interests that pay their other salaries, apparently. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I once again encourage everybody to contact the legislatures and let your voice be heard in this lame duck session. There's probably going to be other things, so keep posted with the other horrible things that they're trying to put through lame duck. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on now, having completed these committee meetings, to our special session. And this is a slightly different format.
Short.
And what we do is we'll be reading through ordinances for third reading, second reading, and first reading. And the ones for third reading are the ones that will be approved tonight, likely, unless there's an amendment. And then the second ones, we usually just read the title, but we do stop to pause and see if there are any comments or questions. And then the ordinances or first reading are the ones that are being introduced for the first time. Our first item of business in this special session is to establish the quorum and all members of council are present. So we'll now have the ordinances for third reading. 131-18 is an ordinance affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement with the Athens City Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council, and the City of Athens communications officers concerning wages and working conditions, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 131-18.
Second.
The title is self-explanatory. We discussed it in committee, and we will be going through many other ordinances very similar to this tonight, so I'm not going to reread the ordinance. I think we're familiar with it. So.
Okay, thank you very much. It's approving the labor contract. We have a motion and second for approval. All those in favor signify. So we have the motion and second. Are there any other comments or questions before I move on? City Council or administration or the audience? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 132-18 is an ordinance affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, known as AFSCME Local 1, concerning wages and working conditions. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 132-18.
Second.
Again, this is another labor contract, just like the previous one, so let's adopt it.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of this ordinance. Are there any other comments or questions? Council members, admin, audience? Okay. We'll take the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 133-18 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a licensure and land use agreement with Ohio University. And this is introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Nisley. I would like to make a motion to adopt Ordinance 133-18.
Second.
Thank you. Quite simply, this is an opportunity for us to collaborate again with the university. The City Service Safety Director would be authorizing to enter into a 15-year land use agreement with the university for passive recreation space. And this would be land adjacent to the Hocking River, just up and beyond our city community center off of East State Street. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 133-18. Any other comments? We do have questions or comments. Councilmember Kotz.
Yes, thank you. I know that there's been certain ideas that have been thrown out there, bounced around, but if we were to move forward, what does the planning process look like for this parcel? Does anybody?
Would love to
Patterson.
jump into this conversation. I have received several letters from individuals who are concerned about the use of that land. At this point, we will be working with, I just had a wonderful conversation with Ann Bonner from ODNR, and the initial plan, as we're thinking this through, is number one, to tackle the invasives that are growing in that area. If anybody were to look at that particular parcel of land, it's 16 acres. We would not do 16 acres all at one time. We would likely phase it and start with the westernmost portion, which is directly behind the community center, and put together a plan to deal with the invasives that are growing through there, the honeysuckle, the vine. There's a number of different invasives that are not native to Ohio. And then as we do that, likely phase in over time, any further clearing of the invasives. It's going to be a long process to do that. But again, we are working with, we'll be working with Ann Bonner. I've also been contacted by others who are experts in this area, or at least knowledgeable in this area. Phil Cantino is one who I will be meeting with next week to discuss what we do. But I do want people to know that passive recreation, by using that term, and initially there were some ideas being kicked around as to what that land, what we could do with it. The intent was never to clear cut that area. I've heard that from individuals as well. Mm-hmm. There will be, as we're looking at that, no tree removal. There's a lot of dead wood that's lying around down there because it's just been overgrown with the invasives, and likely the invasives have pulled them down to begin with. But at this point, it would be great to if we can get ahead of the game with the invasives down there, to make it a space that people can enjoy, to experience, to walk through. And, so we'll be exploring what it could be used for. But the first thing is, again, in looking at that, I would encourage council, next time you're driving from Athens towards Belpre, to make note of the forest along the riverbanks as you get beyond the city of Athens proper, to where it looks very different than this particular parcel of land because of the level of invasives that are growing through there. In a lot of places, you'll see the stand of trees and you can look through and there's the river flowing behind it, because you don't have the same type of ground cover further east that you see right there in that particular site. It's 16 acres. And like I said, we would likely just work with 5 to 6 acres on the western edge, which is near Muntean Medical, BDT Architecture, and start, again, attacking the invasives and see if we can't get those cleared out, which will really kind of change the appearance down there, not radically, but a lot of what you see that is ground cover down there are invasives that don't belong in that area.
Thank you. Councilmember Fall.
We've talked about this several times. I think that something that needs to also be understood is that removing invasives and tackling those sort of issues won't preclude any sort of activities down there. At one point, I think you could go in and be successful with removing a lot of the invasives, where there's Athens Conservancy, who's an organization that Phil Cantino is a board member, and I'm a board member, but we've had a lot of experience going in and removing invasives out of the Baker property that we have an easement on. So I think it's an opportunity also for some really good partnerships between the Athens Birders, the Sierra Club, the Rural Action, and some of their work that they do with invasives, and Athens Conservancy. And I think it could be a really great experience to go in and see how we can restore what needs to be restored, so that our green infrastructure in our town is resilient and does the things we need to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember McGee.
I would just hope, and I have confidence that we all have good intentions, but when we talk about removing any kind of environmental situation, I know a lot of wildlife does use invasives or natural habitat to nest in and make their homes in. So I would hope in the future, and I know we've had some letters to the editors concerned about the disruption of the wildlife and nesting homes of animals down in that area. I would hope both the administration and Ohio University would take care to
Well, and then there's
protected.
people who are from Athens area birders who will, be part of the discussion. Phil Cantino is very active in that.
Good.
So I think that people have stepped forward to be able to look at this.
Good.
Good. Okay. Thanks for the comments. All right. If no other comments or questions, we'll move on to the vote. All those in favor of approving Ordinance 133-18 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 134-18 is an ordinance amending Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapter 11.04, Vending, Peddling, and Soliciting, and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I move that we adopt Ordinance 134-18.
Second.
Thank you. This ordinance, to remind the public, is to make slight changes to the current vending situation in Athens. The essence of the change is changing from an annual license fee to a monthly license fee to likely open up some of the parking spaces on East Union for public parking, as well as benefiting the vendors that don't regularly vend during many of the winter months. Hopefully we can continue to work together to make further changes to this ordinance in 2019 that might be more comprehensive. But this revision is simply to change to a monthly licensing fee. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So we have a motion and second for approval of 134-18. Are there any comments or questions from council members? Yes, Councilmember Fall.
I want to commend Councilmember Crowell for taking this head on. It's been bopping around, and I think that at this point, in piecemeal is a really good approach, because then we can see what will work and how things kind of shake out with all the other stuff with parking that we've been doing. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, and I do want to echo that Member Crowell took this on, and I want to give him thanks for doing this. I'm not going to stand in the way, but I just don't know if this is the route to go. I know that we have Paul Logue, who has done a parking study of the uptown area, and when we talk about a parking problem, I just don't see it. So, switching the licenses to monthly, I think that creates an additional burden on the city. I don't believe that people are requesting to have their license plates or driver's license prorated to a monthly payment schedule. My grandmother would have loved that. She stopped driving as soon as the first snow flew. So, but alas, she had to pay a full year. In short, I just don't. And also changing the width of the parking spaces. I personally would love to see this become vending full time, but this is where we're at, and I'm okay with it. So thank you.
Councilmember Beatty.
Thank you, and I would thank Member Crowell as well. I think he took on a difficult task, as I do know. I would want to emphasize that, in supporting this ordinance, that I feel it's crucial to have the administration behind us so that these parking spaces, if the license fees are not paid for the month for those spaces, that the signs are in fact covered up so that the public has the right to use it. I think that during those winter months and the bad weather months, that's a good resolution. Again, I support the vendors as far as opening up more spaces in town, and I too see what Member Crowell is working on as a step in a different direction. But as somebody who sees that area, that feels that it's important to use parking spaces rather than have them sit empty, I support this measure. Thank you.
Thanks. Mayor Patterson.
Member McGee, I agree with you. I think if we do find that for the month of December or the month of January, I don't know, whatever month, that there are no renewals for that month. I know we're exploring having flip signs down there for the vending spaces, and if there's no vendors who have applied for a monthly fee for whatever month, all those open up for metered parking, along there. I also want to point out that, just for clarity's sake, is that parking meters, no one pays the parking meters on Sunday. They're free to the public, but you still have in here a line that says no vending space will reserve anytime on Sundays. However, vendors who have valid licenses may vend on Sundays without paying the meter. Well, they wouldn't pay the meter anyway on a Sunday. So just throwing that out there is something to consider that might have to be cleaned up later. But just FYI. I too want to thank Member Crowell for taking this on. I took it on when I was in your seat, Member Crowell, many years ago, and felt like we had landed in a good place. But we're a dynamic city, and code is a dynamic document.
Okay. And we have somebody from the audience. Mr. Crane. Yes. You could give us your name and address, and then you've got 3 minutes.
You guys don't remember it from last time?
The rest of the audience. It's new viewers out there.
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone. I'm Damon Crane. I live at 96 Hudson Avenue, operate Hot Potato Food Truck. I'm president of the Athens Mobile Vending Association, and I'm a member of City Council's Ad Hoc Committee on Vending. Tonight, I just wanted to encourage everyone to vote in favor of this ordinance. I think it's a great step in the right direction. A yes vote tonight means that parking spots vendors don't plan to use during a given month will be converted to public parking that month. And during the upcoming winter months, I expect that's going to mean most of those spots would be available for public parking. A yes vote tonight also means that vendors will no longer be forced to pay to reserve spots during times of the year they can't afford to use those spots. I think the city's long-standing practice of forcing vendors to pay to reserve what they can't afford to use has just been bad for everyone. It's taken money away from vendors that vendors could have invested in serving the public more frequently. It's made folks upset about underutilized parking spots. And it's generated exactly the same amount of revenue for the city that would have been collected through the parking meters anyway. So a yes vote tonight puts an end to that as well. And finally, when it comes to the more comprehensively revised new vending ordinance that seems like just a little farther off on the horizon, passing tonight's ordinance means that whenever the more comprehensive ordinance is passed, the city will be able to implement it the very next month. So the only drawback of tonight's ordinance is, of course, there being some additional administrative burden for the city. To me, I think that drawback is fairly small in comparison to what we get in exchange for it. So I hope you agree. I hope you'll all vote yes, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have motion and second. Any other comments or questions? Anybody else from the audience? Okay. Go ahead and take the vote. All those in favor of approving Ordinance 134-18 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 135-18 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into or to extend the agreement with the Board of the Athens County Commissioners for the purpose of obtaining the services of the Public Defender's Office through December 31st, 2019, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 135-18.
Second.
And as the title reads, this is to work with the Athens County Commissioners to obtain the services for public defenders, because we are obliged to provide defense attorneys for people who cannot afford an attorney. And From what I understand, our municipal court prosecutors and handle well over 1,000 cases a year. So it's a very busy court, and consequently, these services are needed.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second for approval of Ordinance 13518. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 13618 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 2913 to increase sewer rates in accordance with the Athens City Code and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by all council members, and I believe Councilmember Reisner will be speaking to this, or Butler, either one. I'm not sure who.
Okay, I can speak to it. This ordinance has been discussed in committee, and it's one of those kind of ordinances that come up every once in a while where council has to make a decision and the administration has to then act upon increasing rates that our citizens have to pay for a service. I'm of the mind here, I don't particularly like the idea of raising any rates for any service, but through our discussions with the auditor and the city service safety director, looking at the amount of debt that we have with our sewer system that has to be paid, has to be serviced, we're really in a situation where we are forced to do this. Otherwise, the amount of income that will be coming in for our sewer rates will be less than the amount of money that we'll be paying out both to service our debt and to maintain the system. And we're almost at that point now. And by next year or the year after, we will certainly be in a crisis where we'd have to come up with additional funds. So that's why I really believe this is necessary. Administration, care to talk?
Just again, to remind everyone that we're talking about the base rate.
Base rate.
And the base rate is what we're using to pay down the debt on the plant. So that's the change that's being made.
Yeah.
Okay, and do we have a motion and a second for approval?
I thought I made a motion.
I don't think you did.
I did. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
If you could do that, that's.
I hereby make a motion that we adopt 13618.
Second.
Okay. And I believe we had that's okay. I believe we had a question. Do we have a question from Councilmember Crowell or a comment?
Just a clarification, if I understand correctly, these rates have not been raised since 2013.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Or sometime thereabouts, but it's been a while.
For the base rate.
Base rate.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Right.
Remember fall.
When we've looked at other base rates and other rates for these sort of utilities, Athens does tend to be on the lower end, especially with water. That last time we did the research, it was quite striking how cheap our water was. And so maybe what now is we're hitting the same things as other communities hit just sooner about having to raise rates. Something that happens with local communities, they always have the services that they have to pay for their citizens. Make sure everything's paid and the bills are paid. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And I will ask the question just so we have it for the public to know what their rate is going to increase per month so that people can budget. Do we have that in the detail of the ordinance for the lowest rate?
Well, I can read here. The monthly base rate change is as follows. Base rate per 1,000 gallons, metered amount as noted above, 0 to 15. It would change from $14.81 to $24.81.
Okay. So it is going to be a $10 a month increase that people will want to budget for. And I know we budget at home every year figuring, where our money is going to be spent. So I understand. And it is an expense for citizens. Okay.
Will this be kind of brought in gradually? Or is it going to just, like, how long of a period will it phase in?
No, this will start in January 2019.
Yeah, so that's a concern too. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we have the motion and second. We've had some comments or questions. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Grace.
Just to echo what Member Fall said, I have been discussing this with people who live outside of the city of Athens, rather some in rural and some in other municipalities, and their monthly cost for water and sewer, even in households of 2 as compared to my household of 6, they are significantly higher. So I do understand that this seems like a significant increase, but when I was talking to a few people about really what we get when we pay our City of Athens water, sewer, trash, recycling bill, that amounts to a lot of really high quality service for a family to have very reliable water, sewer, trash, and recycling all provided to us, and generally without us even having to think about it. It's I appreciate the services that are provided by the city and the city employees that keep those services working. And so I just wanted to comment that there was a water main break on my street, and the street was closed as I was leaving to take my kids to school one morning, and they repaired it and had it opened back up by early afternoon, and it's in fantastic shape. And so I really do think sometimes we don't appreciate the sort of the basics, but boy, we would be really, really disappointed to lose them. So I appreciate our city employees for the work they do to keep everything running well.
Thank you. Councilmember McGee.
Thank you. I'm put in a difficult spot in this situation because, as some of you know, I'm kind of a tightwad when it comes to the public's money. I understand this base rate, and I understand the need for it. As Councilwoman Grace had indicated, in my mind, this is all tied together with the trash and the, not so much the sewer, but the trash. And in my mind, we've been excessive in our trash expenses. As many of you know, I've been opposed to this $50,000 a year rental for trash cans on Court Street. I've been opposed to this composting idea that will cost the public much more in the future potentially. So when I see a $10 base rate increase for everybody, along with the fact that a lot of people are on fixed incomes and they're reeling over the fact that their property taxes are going to go up substantially, I am quite distressed at the fact that the public is being asked to pay more under these circumstances. I would hope that some sort of relief could be achieved in the coming year, perhaps with some of the expenses that we've authorized for the trash and composting to be cut down, and perhaps that even some sort of refund be given to the citizens if it's even conceivable, because I think they really need it, and I think we need to do something like that to restore trust in this this government, this council. So thank you.
Just a point of clarification that I believe the sewer fund is a proprietary fund, so as are the trash, so we can't move one from the other, and I think that's the calculation that's been made on the base rate is what, rather than doing the per gallon increase, it's the base rate increase that the service safety director thinks is necessary to be able to meet the debt payment on the improvements that we made to the wastewater treatment plant. So yes, it is an increase, yeah.
I understand that.
Yep. Okay. All right. We've had comments, and I appreciate them, and some questions, and we have a motion and second, so we'll take the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries, and ordinance 13618 is approved. Ordinance 13718 is an ordinance amending ordinance 12812, establishing the allocation of sewer service charges to the sewer debt fund, number 758, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 13718.
Second.
If anyone needs any reminding of what this does, what we're doing is that we're tweaking where the monies that goes into one fund will be shifted to slightly to another one. Let me read this. A minimum of, and we're changing 25%, is now reading 30% of the monthly sewer service charges collected for Sewer Fund 750 shall be receipted into the Sewer Debt Fund 758. The remaining strikeout 75% is now 70% of the service charges shall be made available for annual operating budget.
Okay. Thank you. So we're shifting it and putting more of the percentage of the water, the sewer funds that we get in over to the sewer debt so that we can cover those improvements.
Yeah, this goes hand in hand with the last ordinance that we just passed, that the debt fund has to be serviced. People need to be reminded that we are obliged by law. We cannot not pay our debts. Can't do that. It's illegal, against the law. It's frowned upon. That's a no-no. So consequently, we have to do what we can in order to service those debts. And this is one way we're doing it.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for approval of 13718. Are there any other comments or questions from council members, administration, audience? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 13818 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into contract with the Employee Benefits Service Center to serve as the city's third-party health insurance administrator and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 13818.
Second.
We've done this ordinance every year. It's one of those things that is necessary for the operation of the city. So I urge that we pass it.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 13818. Any comments or questions? Okay, and this is our third-party administrator since we're self-insured with the city. Okay, all those, and any comments or questions from the audience? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance is passed with that vote. 13918 is an ordinance authorizing a stop-loss medical insurance contract and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 13918.
Second.
Okay, this is the second part of, as you mentioned before, we are self-insured, and every year we come up with this contract with some, not necessarily with Cirrus America, which we are using this year, but different insurance companies to provide us in case we have a major outlay, some emergency that for insurance reasons we have to pay.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 13918. Any other comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the administration or the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 14018 is an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Athens, Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019. And this is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe if council members chose to, they can see on their disk drive what one. Let me make a motion that we adopt 14018.
Second.
To continue, this is our budget for next year. And you can see through the spreadsheets that are on our disk drive just how extensive this budget is. And it's long. So I don't think, we had to read this, but be here all night. But this budget was, process began in September of this year, and it has been pretty much a full-time occupation for several people just to get this thing done. And I believe we're finally there. Mr. Mayor?
This process really took place in August, with the auditor's office, bringing forth at least the personnel payroll portion, the 100s and 200s, and then it is a long process, obviously, in terms of, because we're dealing with all the departments, and we sat down with each department head one by one and went through each budget and had to cut a number of things out to stay within budget. So it's a long process.
And what is our budget for this year?
I don't have the document in front of me right now. It should be in front of you.
I think it's $45,210,649.00. That's the grand total.
Because we have no sense.
And within that, you'll have the general fund, but then you've also got, as President Nisley was indicating a little bit ago, about the proprietary funds are in that budget as well, which brings it up. I believe that the general fund is just north of 15 million.
Let's see, $15,888,554. Other funds total $29,322,095. There we are.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second for approval of 14018. And I would also add my thanks to administration and auditor's office, Councilmember Reisner, Service Safety Director, a lot of people who put a lot of time into preparing it, our Clerk of Council for preparing our budget. So all the different departments do a lot of work during the year. Get this ready. Okay. We have a motion and second for approval. And any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries, and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 14118 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 7116, authorizing non-union pay grades and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 14118.
Second.
This particular ordinance, just make sure everybody remembers what this thing does. It says that the non-union pay grade is hereby amended to add cemetery maintenance in pay grade 1 and an IT systems administrator in pay grade 7, and as attached and incorporated herein by reference. So essentially it's for our cemetery and our IT.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 14118. Any comments or questions? From council, administration, audience? Okay. We'll have the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 14218 is an ordinance authorizing 2019 staffing levels and non-union compensation, repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 14218.
Second.
Thank you. Well, the title says it all, but there's another 7 pages on our disk drive. Care to read into it, but the gist for our non-bargaining unit, we're saying a 2% general hourly pay increase for all full-time and permanent part-time non-union employees. We're also saying it hereby authorizes a one-time lump sum payment of 2% to those employees whose general hourly pay rate exceeds or will exceed the maximum pay rate in his/her pay grade. And then the actual pay grades per position is listed as an attachment, as well as the pay grade bands at the very end.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 142.18. Any comments or questions from council members, administration, audience? Yes, Councilmember McGee.
I think this is the ordinance where Councilmember Butler had raised a question about the maternity leave last week. Am I right or wrong about that?
I believe that's the non-union personnel contract.
Okay, well, I apologize, and I'm concerned that the city of Athens needs to adopt a more modern maternity policy, and I just wanted to make sure that that isn't omitted.
No, this is just strictly the staffing levels.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. The next ordinance is 144.18, and this is an ordinance amending ordinance 5411, water and sewer regulations, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isey. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 144-18.
Second.
Thank you. This is an attempt to do a little bit of housekeeping and cleaning up of our code book. There's a number of strikeouts from this original 2011 document, essentially looking at and acknowledging that the fee regarding some of these costs will be established by a separate ordinance. So that's acknowledged at least 3 different times within this particular ordinance. That helps for clarification. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 144.18. This is about our water and sewer regulations. Any comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved.
Thank you, President Isey.
We now have ordinance 145.18, an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 9.02, Fire Prevention, to add Section 9.02.06, Inspections and Fees, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isey. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 145-18.
Second.
Thank you. Similarly, this too is cleaning up some things in the code book and empowering our fire chief to do some inspections. Again, this is safety being the focus and paramount. It also keeps the process in-house and empowers the chief to look at construction inspection fees, fire safety inspection fees, and contracted and extraordinary response services. Again, we've looked at this in committee and an opportunity to discuss it. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 145.18. Any other comments or questions? Okay. I'll have the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
146.18 is an ordinance amending ordinance 4110, contractor registration annual fee, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 146.18.
Second.
This and the next couple of ordinances is cleaning up code language to put all the fees into a separate section of the code so that when you update fees. You don't end up having to update a whole ordinance that only has 1 or 2 lines about fees. So this will make it easier to track and go forward. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for approval of this ordinance. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll move forward with the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 14718 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 11, Chapter 11.07, Solicitors and Peddlers, Section 11.07.05, License Fee, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 14718.
Second.
This is the same thing as the one before. So, cleaning up the language, cleaning up where it goes into the code for fees.
Okay. Motion and second for approval of ordinance 14718. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 14818 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 11817 and Title I, General Provisions, to establish fees as required by the Athens City Code. And this is introduced by all council members and I believe addressed by Councilmember Fall.
I move that we adopt 14818. Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second. Okay. Okay.
This is establishing the part of code that now are going to be where all the fees that we have taken out of the other code are going to be found. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 14818. Any other comments or questions? Okay. And I think a thank you to our clerk of council who did much of the research on this. And it was a painstaking editing and getting it all together, but I think we're going to be in much better shape for having done this. So thanks. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember McGee.
I just wanted to mention, as I mentioned at the committee hearing, I believe that I am concerned with that part of the fee that deals with the multi-tenants for the trash. And I believe that's part of this. I believe the administration indicated you would look into this, and I hope in the coming year we can do something to equalize the fee for trash collection. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the comment. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, we'll move on to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Now move on to Ordinance 14918. This is an ordinance establishing Athens City Code Title 49, Management, Administration, and Control of the Use of the City's Public Rights-of-Way, introduced by all members of council, and I believe our expert, Councilmember Fall.
Thank you.
Speak to it.
I move that we adopt 140, which one is it? 14918.
Second.
This was introduced a few weeks ago by Andy Stone, our Service Safety Director, and the representative from ICE Miller. We have strengthened the rights-of-way ordinance language that was originally presented to ensure that the balance and the separation of the different roles of government is still present when we are going to go and manage the rights-of-way for the city. This specifically means that City Council will have the original permitting obligation, and then the renewals and such will be done by administrative process. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 14918. Any other comments or questions about this? Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, thank you. I believe it was Member Fall mentioned that this is not sexy, but and maybe I'll agree with that. But I think it is exciting because there are so many things that live within our rights of way, and so I want people to understand that we could be reactive as things change within our rights of way and the demands that are being put on it by different utilities or by the public in general. But in fact, there's an attempt here to be proactive, and so I want to thank administration and also the legal office to have wanted to tackle this, because this has been, is it multiple years, I believe, that this has been worked on, so here we are.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for the comment. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll move on with the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. And we're moving on to the last ordinance of our third readings tonight. This is 150-18, an ordinance amending ordinances 409, 1311, 124-12, and 124-14, and the Athens City Code establishing salaries for certain elected officials. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I move we adopt 150-18.
Second.
As we've discussed in committee and previous readings, this ordinance will change the salaries of certain elected officials, which are mayor, auditor, members of council, president of council, director of law, and treasurer. And as everyone is aware, a sitting council cannot pass any legislation affecting its salaries that would affect it during their terms of office. So for this council, our terms of office expires at the end of 2019. So if this is passed tonight, these changes will become effective for the new council in 2020. And then they would extend on to 2021, 2022, 23, and 2024. Tweaking it depends upon the different salaries of the different officials. The increases average out a 2% increase.
Okay.
It may vary a little bit. Maybe it's 1.95 for someone, or it may be 2.10 for someone else, but that's basically the way it works. It has to do with the way our 26 pay periods during the year and how you divide the monies out over 2%, trying to make it work within the auditor's software. So.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and second for approval of 150-18. Any other comments or questions? Of the vote then, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This ordinance has been approved.
Yes.
With that motion.
That's the same as it is now.
We'll now move on to ordinances for second reading. I will allow a moment for comments or questions for these two, but we basically just read the title because we'll not be voting on them tonight. 143-18 is an ordinance adopting a fringe benefits package for non-union personnel within the city of Athens and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Yes, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I'll just mention briefly that I may be proposing a few small amendments next Monday regarding this. My understanding is that third reading will be a week from today for this particular ordinance. So I will be in communication with this body. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Okay, ordinance 151-18 is an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to offer an amendment to 151-18.
Second.
The amendment would be to the ordinance that was introduced last week, the first reading, would have the following added to section 2, which would read as, and decreasing general fund police 101.107, transaction code 100, personnel for $4,500, and increasing general fund police 101.107, transaction code 200, supplies and services by same amount to cover fuel bills through year's end.
Okay. So we have a motion to amend the ordinance, adding some money in to pay for fuel costs between now and year's end. Any other comments or questions to this? Okay, we'll have a vote on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. The ordinance has been amended and read for the first time. Okay. We'll now have ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 15218 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for flat sheet sign replacement on U.S. State Routes 33 and 50 and State Route 682 and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. I'm going to call this a boilerplate agreement between us and the state of Ohio so that they can do work within the city limits. And as usual, the state will assume and bear 100% of all costs for the improvement set forth in this LPA agreement.
Okay, thank you. And any other comments or questions on this at the first reading? Ordinance 15318 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract extension to provide financial support for the operation of the Athens County Economic Development Council and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we amend this particular amendment ordinance to increase it to, as the mayor requested, from 2019 to 2021 for the contract.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for amending ordinance 15318 for the purpose of extending it from 1 year to 3 years. Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Councilmember Katsas?
I do, yes, thank you. And please correct me because I just can't remember, but I believe we did have a presentation scheduled and it was canceled during one of our committee meetings to have this to have them come forward.
Have Sarah come.
Did it ever get rescheduled, or did I just?
We can have her come.
Okay.
If people want, if council would like to have more information and such from her, I'm sure she would love to come by.
Good. Okay. Great.
And we have been receiving quarterly reports.
Yeah, and because there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening right now. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can have an update from Sarah about some of the really cool things.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That would be good. Good reminder. Okay. So we have the motion and second for the amendment to 15318. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the ordinance has been amended and read for the first time.
Thank you. Do we need to talk about it anymore? No, not really.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be suspended until.
15418 is an ordinance declaring vehicles no longer needed for a municipal purpose, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. Earlier this evening, as you recall, we discussed a few vehicles that are ready for disposal. The mayor did, as you recall, the mayor did offer to provide the mileage for each respective vehicle. So if that's desirable, we can attain that. This essentially will empower the city service safety director to authorize and dispose of the said items by donating them to either other governmental agencies or nonprofit organizations, auction, sealed bid, trade-in, or to sell for scrap. Thank you.
And our clerk of council did clarify for us that these are vehicles that have been forfeited to the city out of court cases. And so I didn't realize that.
Okay.
So obviously no need to replace them.
Okay.
So thanks for that clarification. All right. Ordinance, any other comments or questions on this one, on the disposal? Okay.
I would just like to thank the clerk for providing that information.
The mayor.
Oh, yes, Mayor Patterson.
Therefore, mileage is irrelevant on
Yeah,
these
exactly.
particular vehicles. At that point, who cares?
Right. Okay, we'll get what we can. Ordinance 155-18 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 1508, tuition reimbursement policy for city employees. And this is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. We discussed this in committee about half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. It is what it says. It has to do with trying to keep our labor pool up to date and educated. And I'll read again what we had in our last committee meeting. Tuition reimbursement maximum limits shall be tied to the current tuition rates for 3, striking out 5, semester hours per strikeout quarter, changed to semester at Ohio University Athens campus for undergraduate or graduate courses at the time of request. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll move on to Ordinance 156-18. An ordinance affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, Local 24032, concerning wages and working conditions, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. This was also discussed in committee some moments ago. This is just affirming, as you say, the mayor's execution of an employment agreement with the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, Local 24032, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein for reference. Effective October 7, 2018 through October 4, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? All right. I think we're at the end of reading all the ordinances and ready to adjourn. If someone
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. A second?
Second.
And people wake up.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And we will meet again next week at 7 p.m. for a regular business session where we will read the ordinances again. Thank you so much.